We moved up here in 1969, and life was wonderful. Then Horace got a promotion and we had to go back to California, and soon realized that we really wanted to be back in Bellevue.
Came back and it was kind of sad. By the time we got back 6 months later,
there were a lot more people laid off.
A lot more people.
The people were just stressed. They were worried. And some were having great difficulty. So there was a dramatic difference.
Between early 1970 and fall 1971, the Puget Sound area, along with much of the nation, was rocked by a recession. Plummeting demand in the aerospace industry hit Boeing, the region's largest employer, hard. Unemployment in Seattle reached 12%. And then, the billboard appeared, suggesting it was time to turn out the lights. Well, the lights stayed on. It was early 1971 when a former Boeing worker named Charles Eberhardt set up a table in a tiny office at Bothell City Hall. Determined to help people get back to work, Eberhardt quickly learned that losing a job brought challenges beyond finding new employment in a tough economy. It sometimes meant losing access to basic needs, such as food and rides to medical appointments. In October of 1971, the group received a grant, took on the name North Shore Multi-Service Center, moved to Woodinville, opened a food bank, and also began offering rides. 8 years later, in 1979, the organization moved into its first permanent building in Bothell. Eberhardt likely never imagined that an ad hoc team of volunteers would grow into the largest social services organization serving North and East King County. But in the midst of crisis, Eberhardt's motive was clear. His neighbors needed help. That commitment remains today. In the early 80s, the area took another financial hit, devastated by a worldwide recession. Locally, construction and other blue-collar jobs disappeared. The unemployment rate in King County doubled. Food bank demand quadrupled. Again, Hopelink was there. In 1980, Hopelink became a federally designated community action agency, one of 1,000 organizations throughout the U.S. charged with fighting poverty. By 1982, the organization had expanded to cover most of King County outside of Seattle, opening centers in Kirkland, Snoqualmie Valley, Bellevue, and Redmond to provide food and other emergency assistance. During that time, emergency shelter was a patchwork of motel vouchers and church housing, leaving many people homeless. So in 1984, Hopelink opened the first permanent emergency shelter for homeless families in North and East King County. Families in the 9-unit building in Kenmore were housed in their own apartments, and Hopelink added another key component that remains today, working one-on-one with a case manager to map out a plan for building long-term stability. In 1990, Hopelink was awarded the first Medicaid transportation brokerage in King County and began providing rides to medical appointments for low-income clients. Housing also expanded during the 90s, with 2 new transitional housing facilities in Redmond. And in 1999, the Raise the Roof campaign raised $10 million for a new Bellevue Center, a child development center, and housing in Bellevue. The fourth decade began with a final name change as the organization officially became Hopelink. The 2000s also were a time of expansion. In addition to the new Bellevue Center, Hopelink leased space to begin providing regular services in Shoreline. And the organization added more than 100 housing units for homeless and low-income families in 4 facilities in Bellevue, Redmond, Bothell, and Duval. A merger with Eastside Literacy brought adult education programs, English for Work, and GED Prep. In 2009, while the Great Recession again led to increased demand, Hopelink opened its first grocery store-style food bank, where clients could shop for what they needed from shelves, produce bins, and coolers. By 2017, all 5 Hopelink food banks had been converted to the new model. In 2010, Hopelink launched advocacy and government relations initiatives to support policies that not only help those experiencing poverty, but also reduce the likelihood that people would fall into poverty at all. Hopelink also realized that building a community free of poverty required the organization to address inequity, and it took on a number of initiatives aimed at enhancing services to all clients. One such program trained staff on how to best provide services for those who have experienced the trauma associated with poverty. Beginning in 2013, Hopelink's Campaign for Lasting Change raised $20 million to significantly increase services in the community, enabling the organization to serve more people expand the Kenmore Family Shelter, construct a new service center in Shoreline, and build and open a new service center and home base in Redmond, all completed by 2018. Hopelink Harvest began gleaning fresh produce from local farms. The Hopelink mobile market started reaching into the local community. And faced with the coronavirus pandemic, Hopelink quickly adapted to increased demand while continuing to safely provide all services. For the past 50 years, Hopelink has been helping people and changing lives for the better in our community. Hopelink was born here, and this community will always be home.
When we were looking to see what we might want to do, we wanted something locally that we could support. And I think that Hopelink touches our community.